All right, everyone, good evening. It's Bob Henderson, and thank you for joining us tonight with our monthly CSNP, A Day in the Life of a CISO. So just give you real quick an overview of CSNP. Here are how you can get a hold of us. csnp.org is the website, email, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. And, we're a volunteer organization, cybersecurity organization, and here are ways that you can volunteer. Here are ways that you can join, and we encourage you to do that. There's no cost to join. Donate. We are driven by donation and sponsors because we are a nonprofit across North America and actually a little bit overseas in Africa and Europe as well. And if you want to sponsor, please do so. We encourage that. Our sponsors, we can't do this nonprofit without our sponsors, so we want to thank them. And here are the list of sponsors, and we certainly want to recognize them and thank them for their participation that allows us to do programs like this. And lastly, our guest tonight is Olivia Rose, who's the CISO of Amplitude. So we welcome Olivia, and we look forward to a conversation. So Olivia, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Olivia, for joining us tonight.
Oh, yeah. By the way, Maury Haber is here. He's going to be the primary inquisitor tonight. Sorry about that.
We'll do it that way.
Maury Haber, the CISO and CTO from Beyond Trust. He is the primary inquisitor for Olivia Rose tonight. So I'm sorry, Maury. Go ahead.
No, Bob, it's perfectly fine. It's all good. As you can tell, we try to have fun when we do these Day in the Life of CISOs, make it conversational, and give you a real world's perspective of what it's like to sit in the C-suite. My name is Maury Haber. I'm the CTO and CISO for Beyond Trust, and I am your host tonight. Thank you very much, Bob. Olivia, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. Before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that is attending that if you have questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat window. I will try to address them as we go along for the next hour. But let's go ahead and get started. Olivia, many of you may not be familiar with yourself, your current company. Can you just give us a quick snapshot of your bio?
Who are these people? I'm kidding. Who are these people? No. So I have been in security for a long time, about 18 years at this point. So I'm an old dog, and I've always loved security. Most of that time I have been on the consulting side as more of an advisory CISO, and I started my own company at one point. And then about a couple of years ago, I decided I wanted to go do it for myself. I wanted to go be a CISO. So I became the CISO over at Mailchimp, which is a global email marketing platform organization. If you haven't heard of them, very popular. And now I am the VP of IT and security and the CISO at Amplitude, which is the world's leading product analytics and information platform. It's a really fantastic, amazing product.
Fantastic. So before we start digging into who you are and how you became a CISO in your daily routine, we typically ask a personal question. So I'm going to give you a choice as to which you're comfortable with. Okay. Your favorite drink or your favorite pastime? Which one would you like to dig into?
Ooh, my favorite drink, red wine. Okay. And in fact, I had it because I just got over COVID. So I didn't have red wine for almost 3 weeks, which was a very long time for me, being a mother of 2 children and working full-time as a CISO in a stressful job. And I had my first wine last night and it was delicious.
It's a nice way to end an evening. But before we end an evening, how did you start your career, or what motivated you to actually become a participant in the security community and motivate you to becoming a CISO?
Nothing motivated me. I didn't. I'm someone who grew up with not a very supportive family structure. I was always considered to be the one who wouldn't amount to anything.
We know that's not true.
I know. I was like, haha. But I was always underestimated. And so in my school, I just did not do well in school. I still don't see the point of going to college. I don't. So I think I got that internal drive to prove people wrong from that background. And I fell into security because I graduated college with a women's studies degree.
A
And so-
women's studies degree?
Mhm. Well, I'll tell you why.
I'm not even sure if I know what that is or even our attendees. Please elaborate.
It's the study of women's history, and it's very interesting. And gender studies,
Okay.
pretty much.
All right.
It's interesting. And the only reason I was in women's studies to begin with was because my GPA was so dreadful that it was the only major I could get into. And because it was a new major, and so they didn't have GPA requirements. So here I am, graduated with a women's studies degree. So what do you do with that? You go and you become a, you go into marketing. I mean, what else is there to do unless you go into academia, which I was not smart enough to do. So I was doing marketing for a few years, hopping around, putzing around, and then a friend hooked me up with a job at Internet Security Systems, which was bought out by IBM back in 2006, I believe, or 7.
Early days of vulnerability management, yes.
Early days. And it was one of the big security companies, is one of the first ones. And so I was in marketing for them. And I was supporting the consulting team a lot. And I thought, they're making a lot more money than I am. That's for sure. And their job seems a lot more fun than mine does. That's for sure. So I'm going to go be a consultant. And I became a consultant. So here we are 18 years later. I just fell into it that way. Nothing really motivated me, as to answer your question. I feel very fortunate because I've really loved being in security. It appeals to my brain. My brain works well with it. So I'm really glad things have worked out really well.
It's interesting because at that time in 2006, I worked for EI Digital Security, which was the Retina network security scanner at the time. And I'll tell you, ISS gave us a hell of a run for our money. So now putting another face to that company name at the time, formidable consultants and formidable marketing. So, wow. Okay. Here we are 15 years later, little flashback.
Here we are.
So
We've been
when
around
you,
way too long, Maury.
we both have been doing this too long, maybe not as long as Bob, but both too long. So you became a consultant, you decided to go down the security route, and you mentioned that this is the way you think.
Mhm.
You must have had some significant milestones to get to where you are today, hurdles, good and bad. Could you share one positive hurdle that you overcame? And if you would indulge us, maybe one of the negatives.
Yeah, of course. Well, I think a positive one is that I'm able to impact and affect other people now. Coming up in security, I didn't have any mentors, especially women mentors, because there weren't really that many women. So I mentor others extensively right now. I think it appeals to my bossy side, but it also appeals to I can actually do something now and affect for change. And that's a huge positive impact that I'm having now, that I'm really enjoying. Negative wise, my career has been a struggle. I'm not exactly as I was saying, as Bob was saying, I'm not the type to be the baby in the corner, from Dirty Dancing.
All right, we're showing our age again there, but
I know, again. And there's been a lot of situations that have been really tough, and they're getting, I think, easier now to some degree. We're seeing a lot more women in this field, but for many years when I was coming up, I didn't have any support. It was all fight or flight, pretty much. So,
yeah. So diversity is one of the key mantras, key missions of CSNP, and inclusion, diversity in many different ways. I know that when I started the company in cybersecurity back in the late 1990s, early 2000s was almost all men. The
Mhm.
women that were participating were in HR or sales ops. There just wasn't. How do you think that's changing, and how would you recommend to other listeners on this call to overcome those challenges? Because that inclusion provides information, culture, references that are so relevant and so important to our mission today. What advice would you give them?
Hang in there. It gets better. It truly, truly gets better. There is a very strong network of women leaders now that we never had before. There's very strong networks, like Wixis is one, WIT is another, where they support you, organizations like this too, that you can be with other people like you. And so I'm not just talking from a female perspective, I'm talking diversity in general. There's a lot of support for minorities in general nowadays that wasn't there before. And my advice, two pieces of advice. The only person who can tell you no is yourself. If somebody says no to you, ask why and take their input with a grain of salt. If you respect their opinion, then listen to it. If you don't, then who cares? Move on. And the other one is find people like yourself. So you're in a supportive environment, because it can get very lonely out there when you're one of the very few, just like in anything in life. Yeah.
It's really true that being a CISO, you're on top of an island. CISOs do run in herds.
Yeah.
We both work with our peers, talk to our peers, because something I know, we can learn a ton from each other. It's a different type of island, in my opinion. If someone on this call listening in wanted to understand what it was like to pursue this type of path, from being in security, a professional, management, and potentially a future CISO, how do you think they should navigate the career path? What are some of the traits that you've learned outside of making sure people knew that you are not going to take no to get there?
I think always be learning. The most effective CISOs I've ever met, and the ones who I admire, they're always so curious. They're always just wondering why things work the way they do, and how do we make them better. That's a big trait that a lot of good CISOs share. And then another one is, don't underestimate Simon Sinek terms them the human skills, not
True.
soft skills, human skills. You have to have human skills, especially as you move up towards being a CISO, because you have to influence people to do things that they don't want to do. Like, they may not want to put in antivirus or encryption in on the stored data because it slows things down. So there's a constant need to balance the needs of the business with the risk, and then influencing people to do things they don't want to do. Another thing I very, very much caution people against, and I work with a lot of young people to mentor them, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is literally the most useless and detrimental thing you can do to yourself and your career. I'm going to tell you right now, you need to get over it.
All right, so let's hold for a quick second there,
Yeah.
and let's get the definition of that out. Because when someone hears imposter syndrome or something of that nature, they may be thinking that you're impersonating someone else, or you're doing some type of physical security or hacking. Can you break that down for the listeners as to what you mean and why it's so detrimental that they don't do it? And also what to look for if someone else is.
Well, imposter syndrome is really feeling like you don't deserve to be there, or that somebody is going to see through you and know the truth about you, that you're not good enough or smart enough or technical enough or whatnot. And I think I've gotten it once a few years ago. And so I've been through it myself, and I just got through it because it was just, I realized it was really hindering my ability to be successful. But it's a really terrible way to look at yourself, because you're constantly comparing yourself with other people. So you're sitting in a meeting room and you're sitting there literally going, I'm not technical enough to be here because these other people are talking about technical subjects, which I don't understand. So this accumulates and it really gets demoralizing. And what people, especially young people, it happens a lot with young people, especially, I've noticed. The key is, the first thing is that you've got to realize that you're better at something else than these people. Everyone's really good at something. And, I am not a highly technical person. If I'm in a room with a lot of technical people, sometimes I have no idea what they're talking about. And that's okay. I'm not a technical CISO. I'm a strategic CISO. I hire smarter people than I am for the technical side. So, but when I sit there, I go, you know what, that's fine. But nobody can put out a 1 year and a 3 year strategic security roadmap like I can. None of these people. And that makes you get over it a little bit. Just be really good at something that you can always come back to. Because to wrap this all up, you deserve to be there. Yeah, you're smart enough, you're good enough, nothing wrong with you. Just,
Well, when that happens, yeah, when that happens, you kind of see things and traits come out, like I call it stump the chump, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get that one person in the room that's pounding you with questions and you're going, really? Am I answering these?
Yeah.
What are some of the traits that we should look out to make sure we're not doing or seeing others to try to help them get out of their own way?
Just letting them speak. If you see somebody getting hammered with questions, that's a power move, and that's just not appropriate. And it comes from the insecurity and lack of confidence of the person doing it, to be honest. So standing up for people who can't necessarily stand up for themselves so well, either they're new or they're too shy or whatever. And it's also, yeah, letting them speak, inviting them to speak, meeting with them separately, talking with them separately, looking at what they're strong at. And there was something else, can't remember what it was, but yeah, I think it's important. You've got to realize that, and and this is my philosophy only. It's not about you necessarily. When you're young and you're new in the security field, when you're in a meeting or you're being asked to look at a document with other people, nobody's expecting you to know all the answers. It's okay. You're learning. So don't ever feel like you can't contribute or you're not good enough to contribute. People aren't really looking at you in that way or expecting you to. And I think that's an important point to cover.
Well, that is a really critical point, because as people are entering the security field or really any other profession, you learn what resources you can lean on, what material you can use, what training classes you can do, and what mentors that you can form formal or informal relationships to improve you, to help you on your journey. For your career, or even today, what are some of the best resources that you found to help yourself or even people that are just starting underneath you?
There is so much information readily available that we didn't have when we were coming up.
The internet, right?
It's the internet.
I'm going to go Google something. No, I'm going to go to the library. But,
so there's so much information and training classes and so much free stuff or limited. There's no excuse for not learning about something nowadays. Another one is reach out to people. Don't be afraid to ask. If you're interested in security at your company, go ask whoever leads security if you can shadow, or do they have office hours? A lot of security groups have office hours that you can come shadow, and you get to know them that way. And I'll tell you, security people are some of the best people in the world. I mean, so friendly. So typically you'll be welcomed with wide open arms. It's if you're going to find a way, I mean, if you really want it, you're going to find a way. You're going to get your Security Plus. Eventually, you'll get the CISSP, you'll get these certifications that give you a little more oomph that you know what you're talking about. And you list them on your LinkedIn and your business card and all that. And then you start to network and meet people. It's critically important that you meet people in this field. So when we're able to go to these different events, again, talk to people. Don't just hide behind yourself thinking I'm not worthy, you know, the imposter syndrome. Talk to people. You will find, honestly, that you could sit next to a CISO of some massive company, of Walmart. They could be sitting right there and you sit next to them, have no idea, and they'll talk to you. So
and they're just people. That's the most important thing, is we still put on our pants one leg at a time. And if you do both at the same time, well, then maybe you're a little superhuman. But
that's talent. Yeah.
Right. But we're all just people, and sometimes you just don't even know.
Yeah,
I have met people in my career where going to a development office and someone's chatting with me and they say, yeah, I just fixed this bug in the program. And I'm like, well, that's fantastic. I know that's been around for a long time. And then they go, who are you? And I go, I'm the CTO and CISO. And they turn into a ball.
Like,
they cower away. They get scared.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just a person too. And if you want to talk or you want us to be helpful, we're here to support you. We have jobs because of you.
Yeah.
Without you, I wouldn't have a job. And that's so important to convey. It also opens up the notion that there are people earlier in our careers that have influenced us. And I have had a few. Can you just speak about someone or maybe even a couple of people that influenced you or gave you that extra boost to get to where you are today?
Yeah, there are. I distinctly remember the VP of the consulting group at ISS, whom I went to speak with, and he was very open to me joining the team. You know, there are people I'm thankful for like that. I'm thankful for people when I was scared to become a consultant, because I'm like, I really don't know anything. And now I'm expected to go to all these big companies. My first assessment was PayPal, a PCI assessment. So I did it by myself too. You know, there was one gentleman who said, go for it. You need to do this. And of course, I'm coming up with every excuse not to in the book, you know, and he says, you just do it.
But he had confidence in you.
Yeah. And I think you know, everyone who's listening right now, we all have our doubts. Maury, you do too. So do you, Bob.
Everyone does.
Everyone does, right?
Yeah.
But there's even a quote that I saw today, I think it's on LinkedIn, that said, you know, while you're too busy focusing on what you're doing wrong or why you're not good enough, there's a whole bunch of people out there who are looking at you just amazed by your, you know, ability to be successful, or your smartness, or your whatever, you know, whatever it is. And you would be surprised if you took yourself, kind of take yourself out of your situation, take yourself out of your body and look at how people really do perceive you. You may be pleasantly surprised, you know, hopefully, I mean, hopefully it's not where we're at. But, you know, you'll be pleasantly surprised. And I always, and I think it's because of my childhood and how I was growing up, I never thought that I was a leader. And somebody said to me, you know, a couple of years ago on LinkedIn, you're viewed as you have a huge following. And I'm like, what? I do? And then, but I never saw that because I'm so focused on how do people look at me, you know, how am I viewed, that type of thing. So once you step outside yourself, you begin to realize that the people have perceptions of you, and they're mostly good.
Mostly. Well, I mean, we tend to doubt and worry about the things the most that we can't control, and that's where it consumes us. And if you can't control something, you form a plan to handle it later, but you can't worry about things you can't control. And that's probably one of the biggest things in security that'll eat you alive on your path to being a CISO.
Oh my
if
gosh,
you can't control the firewall rules and you're worried about it over and over again, you form that plan to get there, but you can't harp on something that's out of your control. But
That's
Olivia,
that's
we have a whole mess of questions that have come in midstream.
oh
So
yeah,
if I can hit a couple of these.
yeah.
The first question is out of interest. What advice would you give to someone who wants to consider this path to a CISO, but really believe their age puts them at a disadvantage or won't be good at their age now to try to get there? And I will tell you that age doesn't matter. When I started with EI Digital Security, the company Retina that we spoke about earlier that was competitor to ISS, my chief hacking officer at the time was in his teens, and I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
quite a bit older, almost double his age.
Mhm.
Age does not matter if you are confident, have the talent to get there. But what advice would you give someone that
I'm
wants to
gonna
get there?
disagree a bit with you there. I think if you want to be a CISO, you do have to put in the years. You do need to get an experience in different areas. I think when you're a CISO, I think you are, in my opinion, you're expected to know your stuff pretty much. That's my opinion. I think if you're to become a CISO, I've seen most be in the security field around 10 years. And 10 to 15. So if you're rushing it right now, if what you mean by age is that you're young, if you're rushing it right now, I would advise stop putting so much stress on yourself, because that's going to show. People are going to see that you're pressuring yourself. Just do the best you can, learn lots of stuff, get in with a good company that cares about you, and you'll get there if you have the drive. But I don't underestimate the number of years that it takes to be at the top of
I
the
think
game.
we're going to agree to disagree. I think there's a good amount of prodigies out there that get this out of the gate. Maybe they're the exceptions. I wouldn't consider myself one. It took me years, but
But they also need to, I agree with you from a hacking perspective. I think there's some brilliant hackers who are teenagers who never get a college education. I mean, just brilliant.
mhm.
And they can become a CTO within like a couple of years. I think to become a CISO, you have to have those human skills that I was talking about earlier, and they come with age.
It's a good perspective.
You know?
It's something that I think we might agree to disagree on. I'm going to put the word prodigy before that experience, but for
Yeah.
the average person, I will agree with you. The experience is there, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's something for the audience to take home.
And you know what?
What
Prove me wrong. Whoever asked that question, prove me wrong.
prove us wrong?
I love
You
it.
know what?
Prove me wrong.
Give me the proof point. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and another one of these questions. As companies move more to DevOps, SecDevOps as a way of thinking, how has this changed your daily operations or models of thinking in terms of being a CISO?
Very, very much so. You have to learn how to work with a group of people who don't really want security in the mix so much. I think they value, developers value security. Of course, they understand the value of it, but they're tasked with getting to production, pushing out new features. They don't want to be slowed down by security coming over and be like, oh, you didn't do a secure code review correctly, or you didn't go through. They don't want to deal with that. So you have to learn to work to get to a happy medium, so both sides are okay. And you can build, for example, these bowling, what are they called? The gutters, that as long as you stay within guardrails, as long as you stay within these guardrails, I don't care what you do. I'm not going to stop you. I think in the case of, it depends what kind of company you are as well. For example, you're a security company. So your security team is way up there on the food chain, whereupon my company security is way down there on the food chain below getting features out and products. So you got to know your place, and you got to know how to work with the people who are pushing forward the business strategy. So that's something you need to learn. You need to learn how to relate and understand and collaborate with people who are not like yourself.
Well, that's a fundamental piece. Is this communication thing becomes one of your biggest traits, the ability to listen and go out. But as I've found, and you're probably and this is where the question lies, as a CISO in one industry versus another is very different. I work for a cybersecurity firm. Security is inherent in the code we build because we are building security products. But an exercise company, a financial institution versus a startup, they think about security completely different. Can you give a perspective on what it's like to be a CISO for different types of industries?
Yes, some industries it's a lot easier to get your case through. You would have an easier time getting through the need to become ISO compliant or SOC 2 compliant or whatever it is, and getting the findings remediated. I bet you I would put them. I am a betting girl.
All right, next time we're in Vegas, that's good.
21 blackjack. I would bet money right now that your vulnerabilities get fixed a lot faster than mine do.
I would hope. I would hope.
So it depends. Different industries have different tolerances. Financial services, you can leverage regulatory requirements a lot more than you can in retail, for example, and for security. But financial services is a more difficult environment to be in. So you have to choose which kind of industry and environment you like to be in. And then if you're not a good persuader, then you probably would not do well in a company where you're going to have to do a lot of collaboration and persuading. You just won't be happy. Go work for a security company, then everything gets done.
Well, yeah, but there's all different guide rails for working with a security company, because the things that you want to do that are easy and convenient just don't happen, and you're forced to do things the hard way. We have so many questions coming in. I'm going to take one more, and I'll try to get us back on track. Yeah. This one's a little bit more interesting. As a CISO, when you're looking for vendors, partners, other technology companies to work with, what are the most important traits that you look for when dealing with other companies?
Trust, absolutely trust. I try to work only with vendors and third parties that are recommended to me by other CISOs or whom I've worked with in a prior life, or I'm friendly with, or anything like that. There's just so much noise and clutter. And it's very vendor outreach is very odd nowadays, and a lot of CISOs feel this as well. I know salespeople need to make their quotas. I understand that. I respect that, but the constant emails that are getting fired at you are
and voicemails and how many AirPods can you collect in 1 week just for taking a 30-minute call?
Dinners, and sending me fine wines, which that one's okay, but and chocolates, that one's okay too. But it's when, I'll just go on a quick aside, it's when they start sending the emails that make you feel guilty. Why didn't you respond? Or it's like,
those who get deleted the fastest, in my opinion, but
right? It's like, okay, look, I already feel guilty enough not having enough time with my kids or my family or people I love. And why are you making me feel guilty too? I don't need that. And a lot of CISOs feel that way. The best way to get our attention, and this has been effective with me personally, and I've seen it be effective with other people, is get introduced by a warm acquaintance on LinkedIn. Find somebody connected to that person who knows that person, who knows the person you're trying to contact. Ask that person to do an intro. I'll at least respond if I like that person doing the intro. True. I'll at least respond to you, and we can start a connection. These random emails and LinkedIn requests, they don't work. They just don't. So just stop doing them and spend that time focusing on networking and trying to find people in common.
That's an absolute truth. And with LinkedIn, if you're sending me a link or an attachment or sending it an email, we're security professionals. We're not opening it.
Yeah, we're not going to open it.
We're not opening it. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. So it's
just... and don't do humor. Don't do humor. It backfires.
I'm trying not to.
Oh,
All right. So on the
No,
lighter
not
side,
you, but I have seen some like attempts at humor from, and it's like, don't.
there can be some ones that, yeah, some of the references, yeah, they
Yeah.
don't work, especially when coming through email. Because when you read it, you don't know what the when you write it, you don't know what the state is of the person reading it at that time.
Yeah.
And humor just doesn't never really translate in email. If you want to read a joke, it's one thing, but
Yeah.
it doesn't. All right,
Yeah.
so let's get back on course. So we're CISOs. We have a daily routine. I always tell anybody nothing happens until my first cup of coffee. Tell me about your daily routine.
Nothing happens to my third cup of coffee.
Okay.
Well, I have the luxury of working for a company that's very Bay Area based. So, and I love it because I can go to the gym in the morning, which I really need for my own mental health and sanity. It's very important to me with less anxiety and all that stuff. Then I come back and I can work for a good 3 hours in just beautiful peace and quiet. And then at noon, my time, I'm typically back-to-back meetings, but I don't have that stress of not being able to focus on a larger initiative or project. So I think it's very important to block out time on your calendar for lunch. I do that. It's critical. You are not a superhero and you've got to eat or else I forget to eat. I mean, I also block out between 2 and 3 my time every day because I've noticed that's my period of time where I just go like this.
Mhm.
And I'm a big introvert, so I need to reformat between meetings. And then you know this. I mean, after hours, there is no such thing as after hours. I mean, you're on your phone. You try not to let the kids see it, but some things just can't wait. So sometimes you fall into that trap of trying to be the hero and you have to get back to everything. And so I'm learning to just focus on what's truly important at 9 o'clock at night versus what I feel that I need to get to, which can wait to the next day.
It's a prioritization type problem for the most part.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the hardest skills to learn as a CISO is what to respond to, what not to, what can come later, what will keep me up at night or make me come back downstairs and log back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people think what they have to say, their issues that they're experiencing from their perspective, they are the most important thing in the world. And, you have to balance responding and politely saying, can you give me a few weeks to look at it? It's important to me, but I just can't focus on it right now. So it's tough to meet people's expectations too.
So when we started this conversation and trying to meet people's expectations, we've seen a lot of change from 19 to 20 to 21, COVID specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And the changes in personnel, people being out sick, people not being able to get to the office. How have you managed those expectations and even how has it impacted your budget as you've tried to navigate the last 3 years? What have you learned that could be helpful to anybody listening?
I think we all learned a very big lesson last year that human beings come first and that there's nothing more important than life. And that we all have to support each other and we all have to give each other a break. And personally, what I learned, which has helped me in uncountable ways, is that I used to be someone who, if someone didn't send me an email when they said they were going to, I would also automatically go to there he goes again, not sending me an email when he's supposed to, right? But now I'm very cognizant of assuming best intent. I think they call it ABI, assuming best intent.
It's incredibly important. Yes.
Oh, yeah. And, my stress levels have just gone completely down. It's like, well, he's probably with, picking up his kid or something. I mean, and it's okay. Who cares about an email? I've got many other things to worry about. And I think people have gotten to that place where we're a lot more vulnerable, and we're able to show that now, and we bond together like people should be bonding and treating each other a lot more. And that has shown us, festered itself in a good way with groups. Like groups are more like families, more there to support each other. If somebody needs to go out for half a day because they're not feeling well, we cross our fingers that it's not COVID for them. And we don't, we give them the, and if it is,
Benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting how it's affected.
It has affected us. And, one of the questions, I keep on turning head to look at the other monitors, see questions. I've never had this question come across anywhere. And I love it. I love it. So thank you. As a leader professional, is there a quote you live by that drives your motivation, whether it to be in life or at work?
Yes.
Thank you. That is a brilliant question. I think we're going to keep that one moving forward. What is a quote that you use that that instills who you are?
There's two, and one I've had for years and years and years, and that is Judge Clarence Thomas quote, and he said, "Everything in life that was worthwhile, I caught hell for." It's like,
it's true.
It's true. I was like, don't be afraid to raise hell and upset people because it's fun. And the other one that is more work related is one from Sarah Blakely, and I'm probably going to massacre it, but please Google it because it's a really good one. And this came out probably about 7 or 8 years ago when I did start my own company, and I was afraid that I didn't know enough or whatever. And she had gone through the same thing when she was starting Spanx, where she was constantly underestimated, and so she doubted herself. And I think it's don't be fearful of what you don't know, because not knowing makes you basically come up with a new and improved way of doing things. That's not the standard. And I know I'm ruining the quote, but
it's perfectly applicable to everything we've talked about doubt and worry. If you don't know something and it bothers you, you have two choices: let it bother you, or you go learn it.
Yeah.
There's really no other answer.
Oftentimes you'll go back to the first principle of what is the problem I'm trying to solve, and actually not knowing how it's usually solved, you come up with these new and innovative ways to do it. So don't ever be ashamed or embarrassed or upset that people in the room may know more than you or know how to do things, because your viewpoint is probably a lot more effective and a lot more valuable, because you're building from the ground up. You're building from the why and the need and the solution needed.
It's so true. And I'll just leave that. My quote comes from the band Rush, the song Limelight, and someone can figure it out and send it over to me later, but we are on just a stage. Everybody is. From there, we have a couple of other very interesting questions. When you hire employees, what are the most important traits that you look for?
I always look for bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I love the excited people. I don't look for college degrees. I don't care. As I mentioned before.
What about security certifications?
If they went out and got it themselves, that impresses me more than if they were at a company that paid for them to go. And that impresses me. If you're going to be willing to study in after hours and join study groups, that says a lot more about who you are than just going with the flow and getting a cert just because you were told to get one. I really like enthusiasm. I firmly believe security can be taught. I learned it myself 18 years ago, so I know this for a fact, but you can't teach that tenacity and that excitement. So I will hire somebody who's tenacious and excited over someone who has 20 years experience. Because I don't, they view it more of as a job. I want someone who lives and breathes security and thinks it's as amazing as I do.
So someone that is ambitious, a go-getter, not not someone that just wants to go through the daily routine of 9 to 5. I'm looking
Yeah.
at a vulnerability report. I'm patching a server. Let me go look through a log.
Yeah.
Someone that's going to help you make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, someone who's excited, who like will make me excited, and I never promote people based on or give people titles based on their prior titles. I give them positions and roles and titles based on what I get a very good gut feel for what they're able to do. I know they can do this.
Well, this daisy chains into one of the other questions that came across. Essentially, and I'm paraphrasing all these questions. It's a lot easier than reading some of these. Someone's been in the industry for years, not necessarily security, but tech, and they want to start working on the security side. Would you say that energy is still important for them, even with years of experience, and they just want to get started in security? And what should they do to make that transition?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I hear this all the time. That enthusiasm is still there. Just because you've been in tech for years, I mean, you're still excited about going into security. It's still there. That drive is still there. I think you need to look at what traits from your tech career correlate and run into into security really nicely. And when I mentor and I look at resumes, there's often people who have been in tech for a few years, IT, and they don't see any correlation between where they want to go in security. And I'm like, well, but you did all these things in your tech career, which align with security. So it's a very easy connection to make. And anybody worth their salt reading your resume is going to make that connection between the two. So again, my whole thing, don't discount yourself.
You know what? Resumes are one of these things, and this is off topic. I have a bone to pick about 5 and 6 page resumes, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that are.
Oh my God. Oh, I have seen some resumes. First of all, this is a pet peeve of mine, and you can come at me after this. Don't use the word.
I think we're going to agree on this one, as bad as it sounds, but please.
Don't use the word expert. Nobody's a flippin' expert. When you have 3 years experience, oh my God, I see this all the time. People call themselves experts, or consultants go, I'm an expert in, socks. I'm like, no, you're not. Trust me, you're not. There's always something you don't know. So stop it with the whole expert thing. So if you're using the word expert, please, for your friend Olivia, please drop it, because it's irritating to people who have been around for a while. Because you're saying you're better than I am. And I'm like, fine, you can think that, but I'm not going to hire you. So that's a pet peeve. If you've been around for a while, make it 2 pages. If you've only been around for a couple years after graduation or wherever you came from, make it 1 page. If it's past 3, that 3rd page can be things like your speaking events or volunteer, or just flush out who you are as a person. But if you go over that, you come across as someone who can't edit themselves and someone who's not realistic about what they are. Resumes are supposed to be hard facts about you that get enough interest, meaning you meet the requirements expected of the job to get an interview, which is where your personality comes out. So with LinkedIn, you can play a little bit more with your personality, show who you are a little bit more. Resume is not the place to be using all like fancy icons and pictures of yourself and your cat. And, it's just not. Just give me the facts.
I don't know if I've ever seen a cat on a resume, but I have seen some bizarre emojis. Lately I have, and they're just... Emojis.
Okay. Another thing. If you are a millennial, and I love me some millennials, okay? I do. I'm not bashing. But do not consider your audience. Your audience that are a CISO or a senior leader who's going to be hiring you, they're very likely going to be, 38 years old and older. We don't communicate with emojis. We don't say hey to each other.
Use one.
We we might use one smiley face. I do that, but we don't do this, hey, Olivia. It's like, horses eat hay. I mean, what do you mean, hey? Why are you saying hey to me? You don't know me, right? Hi, Olivia is fine. Dear Olivia is even better. Strokes my ego. But it's, be cognizant of who your audience is. Of course, keep who you are, but tone down the capital letters and the emojis and the emoticons and the flashing lights.
Texting and emails mean something very different to different generations. And
consider that. Yeah.
So we've got one or two more questions here. Let's take that piece here of the audience and see if we can frame this up. If we were to talk in general about being a CISO, what would be the biggest thing in your career and you that people would be surprised to learn or hear about?
I alluded to it earlier. I'm a massive introvert.
It does not show.
I know, that's the thing.
It does not show.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's social introverts and non-social. I love nothing more than a crossword. That's how I wake up in the morning. I do a few crosswords in the morning with my coffee. It's how I wake up. And I have to become a recluse at certain times to get my energy up. But to be an effective CISO in many companies, this is not the way in all companies, but you have to have those human skills, right? You need to get out of your comfort box and you need to be able to talk with people in whole different groups who are very different from you and get along with them. And you have to learn how to, and I've had to learn how to overcome the shyness. I'm actually, you're going to laugh. I'm actually a pretty shy person. But so the introvertism and the shyness, I've had to overcome. I'm still me. I just have ways to overcome it. And so look at what makes an effective CISO that you admire out there and note their personality, their traits. And if you are struggling with one area, then you may need to learn ways to cope with it or kind of tamp it down at times, but still be you.
Well, being you is the most important thing. And that's where we're allowed to be selfish, right? We have to be for ourselves. All right. So pandemic, hopefully over by end of year, maybe next.
Yay.
Where are you going on vacation?
I went on vacation and I caught COVID.
Oh, come on. You've already...
So I don't recommend it. Yep.
Okay. Where is your next trip after all the lockdowns and chaos is gone?
Probably Rome. We had to cancel a trip to Rome, and there's a very, very, very pretty diamond ring sitting in a safe down here somewhere in the basement.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. That I was expected to be given. Yeah, well, yeah. It
would be nice to do that in Rome.
Yes.
All right. And if you had unlimited funds, okay, Bezos, Gates, well, maybe a little bit more limited, what would you do with your life?
You probably won't believe me, but I would give most of it away. I'm a bleeding heart. If somebody's in pain or needs to cover their hospital bills, I'd be like, here, take. I would probably put some away for my kids. I would make enough to be comfortable on. I would definitely still work. I've always loved working. I've been working since I was 14. I would keep enough to be comfortable and completely lose the rest of it.
Yeah, we can't take it with us. We might as well help somebody else, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Make sure the kids are taken care of and go on from there.
Yeah.
I had one last question that I'll pose back to our main topics. I can answer it, you can answer it. Maybe we'll throw it over to Bob to help us wrap up. What's the difference between a CISO and a CSO? His organization recently replaced their CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, with a Chief Security Officer.
Well,
so
why don't you?
There are distinct differences. You want it, Bob? I'll turn it back to you to wrap us up. And give your opinion as well.
You have an opinion, but I have one more question for Olivia.
Uh-oh.
Okay, let's do it.
Tell me why you're a nosy neighbor and what that means.
I wasn't going to do it.
I'm going to ask her.
So I use this
She
term,
shared that
nosy
before,
neighbor.
so I know it's not a secret.
I use this term on a
And I think it's
webcast that
important.
Bob listened to, and he hasn't left me alone since about it. So nosy neighbor, it goes back to that insane curiosity that good CISOs have. You'd be surprised what HR and marketing want to do and product. And you have to, I'm not in HR and marketing, but so I have to keep my ear to the ground. And like, so-and-so told so-and-so who told me, what? They want to do what now? And and then you go talk with them like, I heard. You have to be very open to hearing what's going on at your company. So because people want to do the craziest things.
Okay, so not a literal nosy neighbor, but a nosy neighbor that gets their feelers, ears out, and everything as to what's going on in order to manage security?
Yeah, but I'm also very nosy, like, wait, what? There's what coming? Or this new product launch? What? You have to have that nosiness. Like you have to be the brain, ears and eyes and really listen to what's going on at your company. To be an effective CISO, you have to know what's going on.
Can't live in a box.
Yeah. Like you're like, Mia's doing what?
You installed what? Oh, you got an MP3 player connected to the network? What?
So you got to be nosy.
Yeah, MP3s are a music file format. It's old school. We don't stream. Sorry. CISO and CSO. Olivia, your opinion of the differences, and I'll throw it back to Bob for the same and wrap us up.
Well, what I was going to say is, why doesn't this asker go and meet this new CISO and CSO and ask them themselves? Go talk to them. CSO is Chief Security Officer, which typically means they handle physical security as well. Personnel security. CISO is more of the cyber stuff. So that's why I personally don't call security cybersecurity, because to me, it cuts off a whole element of other types of security vulnerabilities that are out there. But that's what the difference is that I know of. Bob, do you know differently?
No, that's exactly right. It delves into physical security of their plants or building or operations. It talks about security of the executives, like a Secret Service type security. So it really goes into those areas. Some smaller companies, it'll include IT or information systems, but usually they're totally separate, like you said. So yeah, I mean, we've seen that. So that's what we're seeing.
Thank you
so
so
like
much.
video cameras and stuff.
Right.
Well,
So more of the physical than just electronic.
Yeah, physical, personal security of executives and primary board members, or personal security bodyguards, although anything that's a risk to the business, usually that's not associated with IT or information systems.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Olivia, I personally want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Oh, thank you.
It's been a pleasure to get to know you through this forum. Bob, thank you so much for hosting the session tonight. And Bob, I'll pass it back to you to wrap us up. And Olivia, any parting words?
Yeah, I think I said it throughout. Go for it. Don't be a wuss. Figure out a plan, what you're missing, knowledge wise, and your skills wise, and make it happen. I've been told no so many times that I've almost broken a wall with my head banging against it. It's no excuse. Just if you want it, go do it.
Agreed. It is a go for it mentality, and
Yeah.
not to steal the Nike logo or anything like that, but
Do it.
just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Bob, I have a whole mess of streaming questions coming in here. I just want to remind everyone, this is a monthly format. We do the same thing with other peer CISOs that we invite to have these candid conversations and literally just be the people that Olivia talked about, because we are. And we want to encourage people to get into cyber, to learn what we're doing, to pass the baton, because the best thing we can do is depart our knowledge to protect everyone in the future. So Bob, what do we have coming up, and take us home?
Yeah, for Olivia, appreciate it. Really, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm so glad that we formed the relationship. It's great to know you. In next month, we will have Randall Friesies, who is the CISO at Denver Health, joining us. So that will be May. In June, Maury, the CISO from Down Under. Tell us a little bit about him.
So Phil Zongo is an incredible personality. He became a CISO after growing up in Africa. He has an amazing story to tell on how to handle adversity, diversity, adversity, challenges. And he took everything he had from nothing to become one of the most prominent CISOs down under in Australia. And he has a recent book out that is absolutely amazing. So I have had conversations with him in the past and looking forward to bringing his knowledge to the table as well.
Great.
That's going to be a great session. I'm happy to stick around for a few more questions if y'all are.
I am as well.
I'm as well. Let me finish the rest of the guests so we can get back to the questions of Olivia. That'd be great. So in July, I think we're going to have the CISO Wendy's. I will confirm that next week.
He's fantastic. Yeah.
And August, Anahi Santiago, the CISO from Christiana Care, will be here. And in September, we have the CISO from the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia will be joining us. And we hope, we think October, the CISO from United Airlines. So we have a great lineup, coming the next month. So please join CSMP, get involved, keep track of what we're doing, some great programs. So let's keep going with Olivia.
Yeah, still like 42 people hanging on.
Yeah, I'll put in one or two more questions and then we'll shut it down.
All right.
To wrap it up, as you know, post credits go, can you tell us the pivotal point in your career when you first became a CISO?
When I first became a CISO, or
your first CISO position, what was that pivotal point, or what was the catalyst to get you there?
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, I can tell you what my pivotal point was earlier on in my career that I knew I'd made. That was getting the CISSP back in 2005. I don't know. It all kind of just happened. That's a terrible.
Was it someone offered you a promotion? Was it a new job?
No, I'm very, to this day, I'm very grateful to MailChimp because they took a chance on me. I'd never been a CISO before. And they were the first company that gave me that title. So yeah, I think a very pivotal point actually was, this is actually kind of interesting, is I knew that my days of constantly having to prove myself were much reduced when I was starting off at MailChimp, because I was filling out the business card information. And I have many security certifications, and I had to get them because I had to put them on my business card. So when I met with people, they would look at the card and go, okay, we'll give her a chance.
They had to take you seriously.
Yes. So I had to have all those letters after my name. That was a very critical thing for me to do. And I think a lot of women felt that way too, and minorities as well. And when I was filling out that business card at MailChimp, I was like, no, I'm not going to put them on there. I'm not going to put them on there. No, I don't need to. If somebody doesn't respect me, I won't buy your services. I'm at that point in my career. And that was a very freeing moment.
A threshold of confidence and experience.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take one more question. As a CISO, how do you manage the work-life balance?
Did you say work-life balance?
Okay, the CISO effect.
How do I manage it? What I was talking about earlier, you have to carve out times, and you have to guard those times very preciously, like going to the gym or lunch, or my period between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, and dinner time. And a lot of people want to schedule, because I'm on a West Coast company, want to schedule a lot of meetings between 5:30 and 8:30 my time. And I just try not to unless it's really critical. You have to guard certain things. You have to know what things are critically important to you. Now, there's a lot of correlation between drinking alcohol and being a CISO. There's a lot of results. There's a lot of, and it's true. People laugh about it. But
I'm laughing because I'm home. I don't do what. Okay, keep going, please.
There's a lot of research. Trust me, there's a lot of research out there that correlates heavy drinking with being a CISO. And it's very easy to see that happening because it's a stressful job. You're always on, and you're always living in this fear of, please, you look at your phone when you wake up in the morning, like, oh, please don't let there be a breach, that I slept through. And it's constant. And people do, I say it this way, people do stupid stuff any day of the week, any time of the week. People just knowingly or unknowingly they do. And so on weekends at one of my daughter's birthday parties, I was on the phone slacking. This was at my prior company, just slacking with all these people going, so-and-so just downloaded a file of macros and has just released or could have released a big malware issue at the company. But fortunately it was segmented off, fortunately. But you have to be very cognizant of what's important to you and reserve that time. Being a CISO is not for the weak. You know this. Anybody who does this job knows this. It's not for the weak. It's you under a lot of pressure. You have a lot going on, and in the back of your head, there's always you read these news stories about the CISO of this company gets fired because there's a breach. You hear that all the time. So it's like, well, I know I'm the first one out the door. Will I be?
You don't know. But this is why Jack Daniels becomes most of our best friends.
Yeah, not mine. Mine's red wine, but your best friend.
The point is true, and that's probably the biggest message: is that work-life balance takes discipline. Otherwise, it'll consume you.
You got to work at it. You got to literally turn the phone over and say, all right, I'm cooking dinner now. I'm going to put the phone away. Or else, I've seen this happen with many CISOs, especially new ones. They're constantly on their phone, on their computers, constantly on LinkedIn, posting stuff. It's crazy. You got to be human.
Yeah, it becomes too much. Then you don't know how to relax, decompress, and it will destroy you. It will.
It's anybody who's thinking about going into this as a career, I think it's awesome. I don't think I could do anything else. I'm really not suited to do anything else. But I wouldn't do anything else. You have to be ready, though, that it carries a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, and you have to enjoy that type of environment.
Agreed. I'm trying to wrap this up, but I keep on seeing these questions that are just brilliant. And
all right, bring them on.
Have you ever been the fall guy for an issue or a breach?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's pretty lively of a question, and I will say no. But have I ever made anybody the fall guy? No, because it's a team sport. But Olivia?
Yeah, I recently was. I mean, not at my current company, but it happens, and then doesn't make it right. It is what it is.
But you learn from it.
Yeah. And you know what? The way I look at it is life is not fair. And if you think it is, then you need a wake up call. And
you're not living.
You're not living. And these things happen. It's why we get paid the big bucks.
Wait, what?
You get paid pretty well.
Maybe I need you to renegotiate my contract. Wait.
But that's why you take on a lot of
responsibility.
Risk.
A lot of responsibility.
Which is ironic because you're supposed to keep the risk down when you kind of take it in yourself.
Truth. Olivia, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for staying a little longer and fielding the rest of the questions. Bob, take us home.
Yeah, Olivia, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for attending. Tony, take us out. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a wonderful evening. See you next month.
Thanks. Bye-bye.